Hey guys, Mike with Insightful Imagery. I have a really cool video for you guys today. If you ever wondered about do I need really expensive gear or strobes or any of that stuff to take really nice toy portraits, the answer is no. And I'm going to show you today how to do a picture like this with a flashlight from Amazon. I'll link this in the description down below. If you guys want to buy this, please use my affiliate link. But before we get started, let me remind you, please like and subscribe to the channel. Appreciate all the new subscribers, all the new likes and everything. The channel's growing. I appreciate it. You guys find some good information in what I have to share, and I'm grateful for that. My Instagram is insightful_imagery. Follow me on there. Facebook, same thing, Insightful Imagery. I'm going to timestamp the video to skip past my intro for those of you who want to get right to the video itself. I'm going to timestamp where I do the example with the Lume cubes, and then I'll timestamp it again also where it skips forward to just the flashlight part of it. If you guys want to just skip sections, then I'll put those timestamps in the description down below, along with the links if you find yourself wanting to purchase a flashlight or anything you saw me use in the video. Tools to clean your lens, Lume cubes, the actual figure itself. And it's a really fun video. It shows that you can take a common light source, a flashlight, and use it to create some really cool photos. Now it does take a little more preparation, which is where things like strobes and stuff like that come in handy. They're a little easier to set up, and once you get comfortable with them, they're just easier to use. These take a little more preparation, but it's fun. And if this is what you have, you can still get some great images with a flashlight. And I also have back there a little camping lantern, battery operated from Walmart. But anyway, just a constant light source is all you need. You just need a light and a way to control the light. And you're going to see how I do that in this video. Let's get going. So here you can see a real plain set. I'm going to start with the example using the Lume cubes. My set is real minimal. There's not a whole lot of accessories here. Part of the reason for that is because this Living Dead doll is quite a bit larger than the action figures I normally photograph. And so I didn't want to put too much in there that would look out of place and not scale right with the figure and just look kind of dumb. So anyway, that being said, I've got some landscape gravel here, and I begin to spread it out slowly on the black foam core. I spread it slowly because it does create some dust, and I want to avoid dust coming up into the air and then maybe transferring to my equipment. And I spread it out here in an area too that is most likely not going to be in frame. But I do that because if I happen to want to change, the angle of view or move my tripod around, I don't have to add stuff later and then take the risk of bumping things and knocking stuff over. If I just spread it out now, then I don't have to worry about it later. It doesn't hurt anything to have a little bit more down than I need. Then I go ahead and I move it around with a dry paintbrush, and that does two things. It helps prevent getting dust and dirt on my hands, and then I transfer that to my gear, and it also helps me from knocking things over with my fat fingers. So I want to make sure to brush it here against the wall and hide the seams in the back where the white foam core is visible under the stone, and just brush it around or whatever I think is going to look good, bringing it up against the edge of the walkway here that I carved out of foam. Then I'm going to tap my brush off inside the jar so that it's not dusty flying around in the air. And at any rate, so this is a really fun figure too, man. This is a nice figure. I'm really happy that I bought this figure, and I just decided to go ahead and shoot it today. I bought it actually a couple months ago. Here's some little cool skull embellishments that I bought at Michael's, and some crossbones, little femur bones and stuff. And I'm just going to set them on the scene here in a way that I think is going to just complement the whole, complement the whole image. There's no particular way you have to do this. I just put stuff there that I think is going to look nice in a way that I think is going to look nice. I use odd numbers of stuff though, like threes, because it just looks better, in my opinion. But at any rate, so we'll go ahead and put some stuff out here, and I put one in his hand too. I like the way that looks instead of that little gold box that he has. And so I think it just makes for a cooler looking image. And we'll just drop stuff here. Like I say, you're not going to see some of this stuff in frame, but in case I do move my camera, I'll be able to see it, and I won't have to move it later. So here, now that I've got that done, I'm just going to run over, set up my tripod, and kind of get a general idea of where I want to put the camera height, angle, things like that. How far away I got to be with this lens here. This is a 200 millimeter, so there has to be some distance. The minimum focusing distance on that is kind of far away, and I want to make sure that it's going to give me a good view of the doll when I photograph it. It's going to fill the frame, and I'm going to be in the right position and not have to maybe put an extension tube on. But at any rate, so here I'm just going to go ahead and raise the legs up and drop the camera down into portrait mode, or portrait orientation, not portrait mode. I shoot in manual. So anyway, I put it in portrait orientation, and I level the head. I've got a leveling bubble on there, so I make sure that it's level. And then I just go ahead and kind of just work my camera into a position and an angle that looks good through the viewfinder. And that's what I'm doing now. I don't want to be too high. I don't want to be too low in this. I want to kind of just be, you know, right at eye level. And this lens is a good choice because it really does have some great compression, and it fills the frame without having to be close to the subject. So I'm going to go get some stuff out of my little tool bag here. You know, some tools to clean my lens. I'm going to get my remote shutter right here and plug it in. And I do this every single time. I forget to put it in before I rotate my camera down into portrait orientation. But anyway, and I do it every single time. One day I'm going to learn to do it before I do that. But anyway, so let's go ahead and take the lens cap off, blow a little dust on there, or blow a little air on there to get dust off of there. We don't want to blow dust on there. Gosh, what's the matter with me? Now I'm going to go ahead and a little secondary cleaning. I'm just going to run my little brush around there and through the viewfinder too to get any little dust and hairs out of there so I can see. And put it back in my tool bag. And I'm going to grab this wireless trigger and receiver and plug it in. And like I said, I should have did this in the beginning, and I do it the same way every time. I forget, but it's okay. You can always I haven't focused at this point, so it's not a big deal. I can always, you know, get everything back into position. But go ahead and turn it on. Make sure that I'm going to get some green lights, and I don't. So I realize that my little number codes are switched. So I'll get all the codes on the same line. Put my lens cap or my lens hood back on. I always use a lens hood. It keeps light going directly into the front of the lens, which is the way it was designed. Without a lens hood, light comes in from the side and you lose contrast and sharpness. So what I want to do here is I'm going to screw a Lume cube onto this light stand. There's a threaded hole on the bottom of these Lume cubes, and I'm going to these Lume cubes here are fitted with a plate, a magnetic plate that helps put modifiers on them, but we'll get to that in a minute. There's a threaded hole on the bottom, and it fits onto a light stand, and I'm just going to screw that onto here. I'm not worried about the Lume cube. I'm having to, you know, move it, rock it forward or backward to adjust the light that way. All I want to do is adjust this light up and down. So screwing it into the threaded pocket is just going to be perfect. I put my light stand right next to the subject at about the height I think I want right now, and then I'm going to grab another Lume cube and do the same on the other side. I'm going to side light this scene because this figure has a lot of little cool textures and details, and side lighting always brings out a lot of the texture when it's present in the subject. So we're going to put the other Lume cube on opposite side of the figure, and we're just going to create, you know, a side light. And I think I'm so short on space in this little studio, man. Let me move this. That's an Evolve 200. I can't use it today because I'm only using flashlights and Lume cubes. So let me move it out of the way, and I'm going to scoot this Lume cube in and get it into position. And I'm going to go over here and grab these little diffuser bubbles I'll show you here. These are really cool. Open it up, and they're like just little see them? And there's two different opacities, and they have little metal tabs in there that lock into the magnetic mounts on the front of these Lume cubes, and they're really cool. So, and what the diffuser does is it just takes the light and makes it softer, spreads it out a little bit, and sort of hides any hot spot that would come from the light hitting the subject, especially a subject like this, a toy where it's pretty reflective already. You want to try to avoid having hot spots, and these little diffusers help change the quality of the light coming out of the Lume cube. So what I'm going to do now is I'm turning them on, and I've grabbed my phone because you can operate these Lume cubes with the app. I think it's called Master Control or Master, I don't know, Control Center. That's what it's called, the Control Center, Command Center. And you can see it here on my phone. I'm going to go ahead and open the Lume Cube app up, and it's going to ask me to register these. I got a couple more, and so this is the first time I used them. I had 2, and then I got 3 more, and I just hadn't registered them yet. So we're going to go, it's going to see I've turned them on. They registered, and they show up on my phone. I turned them on. Now I'm going to go ahead and adjust the individual sliders in this little Mission Control Center, and that's all it is. Every Lume Cube that you have, it will show up on your phone in a numbered sequence, and you can adjust it with the sliders in brightness. And that's what I'm doing now. You can see the lights going off on the floor, the reflection from the Lume Cubes as I adjust them. And this is just such a handy tool to have. You know, it's not a flash, so you have to have a tripod, because what I'm doing is, I'm going to create some longer exposures today, and in order to do that you have to have your camera on a tripod. But these are great. That's one thing I like about strobes, is that you can just blast the flash, and you don't need to handhold you don't need to have it on a tripod. You can just handhold it if you want to, depending on the type of shot that you're going to do. But anyway, so here you can see my lights set up. I've got a Lume Cube on each side of the pinhead doll, and then I've got a Lume Cube facing the rear wall with a blue gel. Whenever you see these pinhead dolls, they tend to have blue in the image in all the stuff that I was looking at online. So I wanted to just kind of keep in line with that kind of feel and add a blue gel to that third Lume Cube that's shooting back at the wall. So here you can kind of see my settings. I'm going to go ahead and the first shot is always one where you're kind of trying to find a starting point. I was originally going to go with a custom Kelvin, but ultimately I'm going to decide against that because I can just adjust it in post. I'm just going to put it, you'll see me here go to adjust the Kelvin, but I just go ahead and put it back on flash. And I just, the Lume Cubes run a little blue. They run a little cool because they're an LED light. So I can adjust that in post. But anyway, the main things I want to get here is I want to get a good starting point for my shutter speed. And I'm always on ISO 100. So we don't have to worry about that. And my aperture, you have to be careful on shooting this pinhead because there's quite a lot of distance between, you've got pins coming out of his face. I've got his hand reaching forward. And so I want to focus on his eyes, but I want a good aperture. I want to choose a good aperture so that I can make sure that the pins coming out of his head aren't so blurry when I focus on his eyes. So I choose an aperture that I think is going to be best for that. Ultimately, though, let me just throw this in there. I'm going to focus stack this. I'm going to take a picture of his hand, his outstretched hand, and then I'm going to take a picture of his eyes sharp, and I'm going to blend them later in Photoshop. Anyway, here you see me focusing in live view. I don't want to get distracted and start talking about a bunch of other stuff. But here you see me focusing in live view. And you can see the distance from the pinhead to his eye. There is going to be some sharpness, some softness in the pinhead because they're, maybe a half inch or so from his eye. So if you wanted to get real technical, you could just focus stack all that and turn this into, 30 shots. But I'm not trying to do that, So we'll just keep it simple. So like I said, I just wanted to keep it simple. And here you are. Everything's set up. We've got our lights adjusted the way we want via the sliders. I've got my scene set up. I've got my focus locked in. My composition is good. You saw me focus in live view. And you can see here that I'm dialing down the blue light that's shining on the wall. I'm doing that from my phone. I took a test shot, and it turns out that the blue was a little more intense than I wanted, and so I'm adjusting it now. I took the test shot. You couldn't see me because I'm out of frame. It turns out the blue was a little bright, and the lighting here, you see me moving it, it was a little intense. So what I want to do here is I'm turning the Lume cubes to create a feathering effect, so just the edge of the light hits the action figure there, and so that gives me a soft edging light on the figure, and none of it spills back onto the wall. I could not be lazy and add flags, but I chose just to rotate the Lume cubes and feather them on the pinhead doll. So it's just a matter of whatever you want to do. In this case, I chose to rotate them and feather it instead of put a flag on there. A flag would have been the more proper way to do it. But, these are small light sources, and it's not a big deal. So here we're going to plug in my fog machine. And, of course, is too short, so I need to put it up on top of the shelf. Anyway, it's always something to contend with, man. But I'm happy. So here we are. Everything's set just like I need it. All the lights are right, the right brightness, the right positions, composition's good, focus is locked in. Now what I'm going to do, since I'm a one-man show, I've got to use my remote trigger. There we go. I'm going to fire it off. I got 10 seconds. Let me get my fog machine into position. Now I spray a little fog. And what this does is you can see the fog roll around there. But I have to do it at just the right time. Here's the first shot, and I like it. It looks really nice. There's some editing that I'll do later to it, but it is a really nice shot, man. And it's tough because I'm doing it by myself, so I have to time it and spray the fog and do all those at just the right time. So it does take some planning to get a shot like this. It's really simple in execution, but it's just a matter of planning and taking a few shots and getting it how you like it. So here in this next example, I showed you the plastic bag because ultimately that's what's going to end up being my background here. I put the stone wall into this plastic bag, which I had an idea. It sounded good, or it looked good in my mind, and when I started to do it, I thought, what a lame idea this is. So anyway, I got a blue gel inside there. I'll tell you what the idea was going to be. I'm getting a lantern out of frame now. There's a lantern I have set down right there. And I'm going to tape this blue gel to this lantern. It's a cool light source. I got it at Walmart. It's, it runs on some C batteries, but it's a constant light source. And so that's what's nice about it. I can set it down and leave it turned on, and it'll just stay lit. So I'm going to tape the blue gel around the light source here, and you're going to see in a minute that I tape right over the off-on switch. I just can't get things right sometimes, and instead of cutting the tape here, I just want to wrestle it. I just want to, it would be easier if I just cut the tape, but I didn't. I'm a guy and I'm stubborn. So anyway, we try to rotate it around, and ultimately I get it around to where I can get to the on-off switch, which is what you want to be able to do. There we go. So anyway, I was going to put this bag, put the light behind the bag, or behind the wall, and thinking light might wrap around somehow to the front. But I thought, that's really stupid. It doesn't work like that. So then I go ahead and I put the light to the side, thinking that, some light would shine onto the plastic itself and create some cool highlights and textures. But then I have a problem with this light. I said it was cool, a good light, and now it's like shorting out on me. But what it is I knocked the battery loose on the bottom and I didn't realize it, so I have to take it out and reinsert it, and it's just giving me difficulty. I could edit all this out, but I just want you guys to see the struggle is real. Anyway, so I get it put back in there, and I continue forward with my stupid idea, and realize that it's just not going to work like I want. And actually, it's not a stupid idea. It just takes sometimes trying to follow the steps to find out that an idea is not going to work as good as a different idea might. So here, I took and I put the light source right behind the torso, the entire body of the figure, and it hides the shape of the light, but I get the full effect of the light and all the cool texture of the plastic wrap. So as long as you stay on axis, the light source stays on axis with the figure, it stays directly behind, you're not going to see the shape of the lantern itself, only the effect of it. And so I thought that was a much cooler way to go. I do need a reflector in this case because we're using a flashlight to side light, and I need to get some fill light in on the other side. And so when I use the flashlight, I need to be able to have that reflector on the side so that as I light paint the side of the figure, which you'll see me do in a little bit, I can use the light that's hitting the reflector to bounce it back in and create some fill on the opposite side. And that's important to help create some shape in the figure. So we're going to use the light stand to do that. And I'm taking my Lume Cube off. I'm going to put the reflector on here, and I'm going to use a clamp just to hold it on there here in a second. These little alligator like A clamps, you just get them at Home Depot. They're really cool, like $1 a piece or something. So we raise the reflector up to the height of the figure, and I put the little clamp on there like I was talking about, and that just holds it on there. And then I'm going to go around to the other side here and make sure that the height is high enough that it covers over the figure's head, so that I know whatever light I shine on camera right is going to bounce back in and actually fill the other side, the camera left side of the action figure. And this flashlight is super powerful. It's a LED light. It has a high and a low setting. It's $20, and it is really strong. And it's super light. I mean, it doesn't even feel like you're holding anything. I'll link that in the description, and if you guys want to buy it, just use the Amazon link that's in the description, and that helps support the channel. So here you're going to see me lock in focus again just to make sure. I haven't moved the camera since the first example with the Lume Cubes, but I always want to double check my focus. We're going to go over here, and I'm going to bump it up from 5.6 to f8 on the aperture, and then I'm going to change my shutter speed down to 2 seconds because I'm bumping it up to 8. So I need to find a shutter speed that works with the aperture I choose, so that it gives me long enough time to move the flashlight around the figure and light the scene. I chose f8, so I'm starting out at 2 seconds, and we're going to see how much I can get done in that 2-second window. And I fired off a shot, and we're going to go back to the camera and look at it and see if I think that that's going to be something that I like. And here, when you look at the back of the camera, you're going to see that it's pretty bright, which means that my light stayed in one place too long, or it was too close to the pinhead doll. So that means I leave my settings the same. I just change the speed at which I move the flashlight around the scene and how close I am to the doll. I need to back up and move my flashlight faster. See here, I like the effect much better, and I give the thumbs up on it, and I decide that that's a good place for me to keep my settings. And I don't change the settings, I just change how close I am to the figure and how fast I move, or how much light passes through. I put my hand over the lens of the flashlight and minimize the amount of light coming out. And so there's a few things that play here when you do this kind of shot. It's how fast you're moving, how much light is passing through the front of the lens if you've put something like your hand over it, and how much time you have from the shutter speed in order to light the scene. So there's a few things that play here. And it takes a couple tries to get something that you like. So don't be discouraged if you don't get it right the first time. You know, it'll be 3 or 4 times, you know, before you find something that you like. So now that I decide I have a shutter speed I can work with, and I kind of got a feel of how I want to light it, I'll go ahead and plug my fog machine in. Okay, and see my hand over the front of the lens here of the flashlight? That helps minimize the amount of light coming out. And that just, you know, helps me be able to light paint better, light the scene better, and not so much of that strong light coming out and overexposing parts of the doll. We don't want that. So here we take another shot, because it does take a few times. And I want to show you what these two images look like. The image on the right was a little dark, so I retook it, got the image on the left, which was a lot brighter on the gown and the head. It was a lot more evenly lit. And I really liked the way that one looked a lot better. So that's why I say it takes a few times. You move around, you light it, you see what you like. Here, I'm going to put a piece of printer paper in front of the flashlight and create a nice diffuser. Okay, blow a little fog out, and it's fast, man. Blow a little fog out, use the printer paper, it creates a diffuser. It makes the light a little less harsh coming out of that flashlight. Remember, you need a light source and a way to control it, and that's what that piece of paper is doing right here for me. It's allowing me to control the harshness of it, because I can't get any further away from the figure, and the light is pretty strong. So that paper helps soften it up, and it just takes away some of the danger of there being really hot, bright, overexposed spots on the figure, and it creates a nice even bit of light. Let's take a look at the images that I chose to work with. These on screen are the exact same image. The one on the left is right out of the camera with no adjustments at all. The one on the right, I did a minimal amount of processing. I scaled it up a little bit. I did some sharpening, a little bit of hue saturation adjustment, and maybe some dodging and some burning. But I try to get it as close as I can to right in camera. And then I use Photoshop as a means to add sharpening and some little minor local adjustments. Appreciate you guys watching. I hope you learned something out of this. I hope you took away that you can use flashlights, and that it takes more than one try, and that you have to experiment. You know, things like that. You know, have fun with this. Like and subscribe to the channel. Visit my website. Got a lot of cool stuff on there. Stay tuned for more great content, guys. Thanks a lot.